Kubernetes for Humans.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Kubernetes for Humans podcast. My name is Iti Schwartz, and today with me in the show we have Ahmad. Ahmad, happy to have you.
Happy to be here and thanks for the invite and really excited to see where's this conversation gonna go. I'm
Yeah.
excited about Kubernetes, and everything around it.
Yeah. So as I told you like a couple of minutes ago, the show is quite inclusive in the format, and what I would love first of all is for you to introduce yourself. What's your background? When did you start like I don't know, like doing some like software engineering or ops? And then we'll like go through your story until the point there where you learned about Kubernetes. But let's get started.
Yeah, let's get started. So I actually have a very interesting background, but like I come from like an accounting background. That's my major. And then I transitioned into that 15 years ago. Like I have a passion about technology. So I started from there. I always loved to play with computers back in the day, since my teenager age. But then, like after that, I had my own startup. I worked in different companies. I always was passionate about cloud computing and AWS. And in the past few years, I found myself more and more like swifting from like back end engineering to infrastructure more, and then trying to like get into like what's cloud mean for people, like how things evolve. And over the years, things evolved from like just being cloud to Kubernetes to other things in the community. So right now, I'm a principal engineer at the New York Times, but also like I work a lot with CNCF projects, and I'm a CNCF ambassador as well. So that's where I'm at, trying to help community understand what's a platform. I think my goal overall, so to speak, work-wise or community-wise, is to help people being able to bring their products to life without having to learn all of the details, because cloud native ecosystem and the tech ecosystem is coming faster and harder and larger, and then you can compose it all in a small mindset. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, so you said like a lot of interesting things in one paragraph. So let's get started. Maybe on I have to ask like from accountants to like like platform the New York Times. On the top of my head, it does indeed sounds like a very weird like journey. So how was like the first like change from how? Yeah, walk us through that.
Yeah, definitely. So back in the days, it was like just like college, just like I had to go through like a commerce college, or go through accounting. But then like I started to find myself like it just like college is not the things that I wanted to go for. It was more of like I'm just wanted the college to have a college degree, and that's like what everyone's want. Don't want to drop out of college. Back in Egypt, it doesn't work this way. So that's where like I start to be like more connected to like computer stuff, and then my passion started around like what's scripting mean, what's like web development mean, all of the kind of elements. To be honest, and until this point, I don't like front end. I don't
Yeah.
work with it too much. Just like it's not anything of understanding, but it's more like I focus more on the back end, and that's where my transitions. And then after college, took a boot camp, and that was like a 9 months in software engineering and e-learning technologies. That's where I learned a lot on how to do that. And I decided to have my startup. So I had a startup for a while, for a couple of years, where like I was doing custom software development. And that's basically where I learned a lot about like different languages, different cloud ecosystems, on-premise software, and all of the things like that. After a while, I just like start to work for companies. Climate wasn't good for a startup, and like I wasn't good at it because it was just my first thing after college. So it wasn't
Mhm.
I learned a lot from the process. Definitely will try it another time, but it wasn't meant to be at this time. And now I just like over the year, the transition was like not something intentional, to be honest. It was more of like a step by step. Like in a couple of years, I would work in backend engineering, and then like I found myself like more swifting towards DevOps because I just like started to like the ecosystem. I started to understand it more and more. So that's where like start to be like a gradual change until a point where like 5 years ago, I was like, I'm gonna go like full DevOps, full platform, understand ecosystem, work more on cloud, don't work more on back end engineering. And that's where the whole process happened.
Okay. No, it sounds like like quite a journey, quite a journey. And you also said that you opened your own startup, right? Why? What?
Yeah.
How?
Why? Why? How? Like it was just like I was I was passionate about like what exactly I wanted to do, and like to be honest, I wasn't sure yet if like what exactly like kind of jobs that fits me. I was like more into engineering, but I also like wanted to see like how the startup ecosystem and the problems that I was trying to solve. Like back in the day when I was when I were in Egypt, like I had a lot of talent, and I went off like make good products out of it. So like what we started doing is like building projects for different clients across. We didn't have a product. It was more of like and a startup that like does some custom software development for other
Yeah.
companies, and that was like the major thing. But like young age, out of college, don't have a specific visions on where exactly this would go. I didn't have like that enough experience into like also business management, all of the kind of stuff. I had enough experience in tech, but not on the other business side of things. And that's where like needed to have the balance, and I was drifting more towards the tech rather than the business, because I was passionate more about, and that's where things didn't work out really well. But it worked well for like a couple of years, but then it didn't work well. And then I learned my lessons. But it was a fun journey to understand how the whole ecosystem work. Like how tech work with business, get some ideas, all of the kind of stuff, and then move over to like be completely focused on tech. But the business perspective that brought to me is helpful
Yeah,
because
I think like
you know
I think like platform engineers in a way you need to know how to balance like the technology aspects of things and also the time the business requirement or like the business future, I will say, and how do you build the system in a way that makes sense for, not just right here, right now, but a year from now, right? Or a couple of years from now. So maybe let's talk a bit about Kubernetes. When did you discover about it? What did you fail and how do you feel currently on the Kubernetes and the ecosystem?
discovered about Kubernetes like about I'd love to say like 7 or 8 years ago, maybe a little bit more. Just doing like all of that kind of deployment. All of it was like instances, and like you get your app running on like a machine, and all we know is a virtual machine, cBanners, all of the old stuff. And then like we were like, oh, there's some things that can manage container on a scale. What does that mean? And it was like, oh, holy like there's a big things that does this, and I was like, I don't know anything about it. Let me just like dive more to understand like what exactly it does. And to be honest, it was like one of it's a change, because like it's just like a drastic change for like how you do things. I don't want to say it was a bad change or a good change. Right now I could say it's a good change, but back now I didn't know like if that was the things that, but I have seen what I have seen in it is just like there was a problem and there's a solution that is trying to solve it. It wasn't not that popular back then.
How
So
many
that was
years, how many years ago was it?
about 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's just
So
like starting to gain the popularity, but yeah, but
Yeah, so it was about to start, and so like, but containers was the things that like people are playing around with and then forever, and then like I started to look into it, and then like, but I found a lot of useful use cases out of it. The one thing that like really resonated with me. First, it was an open source thing that like just like, you just can play around it with different providers. And then according to the journey, all I have seen is like people not try to fight it. They are trying to build on top of it, which makes it easier for the community to adapt. So like you find like all of the cloud provider now, they have their flavors of doing it, but still Kubernetes behind the scene. Just like it doesn't matter. And that's where like I think like there's value on having open source technologies in the market that's widely adapted, because also like uh me and you can talk Kubernetes right now, and like we probably have different stacks, different things we do, but it's still like the same thing. You might have like different couple things, I have a different couple things, and I like that have a shared language. And I think that's what open source and what Kubernetes built around. The shared language is like we know what's a deployment, what's a service, all of the kind that construct are there, and we don't have to like explain what is that to one another.
maybe no, it makes total sense. Maybe share something that you know you've done quite a lot of this work. maybe share with us some like a harder story, like some hard integration, some hard migration when when you tried it to like maybe like and like bring a new technology into the company. How does it usually works? Like I know there's a lot of time there's some tension, right, between developers and operation and platform. If you can share like something, it can have like a happy ending, but something that wasn't that vanilla, right? Like everyone saw that and it was crazy.
Yeah, nothing comes top to mind, but like all I can tell you is like, let me see if it flew into it. Like, change is always hard because change requires effort. Like the one thing that usually makes more sense when you start thinking about abstraction, because change behind an abstraction makes more sense of doing things. So the one, like, I can tell a different story, but like it might resonate with you. So the one things that I have seen, uh, not according to change were like a bad thing there, but like one day in an organization that I used to work for, we had a situation where like we want to move. Uh, they were in Kubernetes, and then like we wanted to move from like one provider to another. Uh, and I can tell you, like I'll tell you the fast forward thing to it. The DevOps team moved it in a single night, like an entire set of a Kubernetes cluster. Just like you wake up in the morning and like, hey, we were in that cloud provider yesterday. Today we're in this one.
It's
I was like,
crazy. It sounds crazy.
yeah, it sounded crazy, but like it was like, and that's because of Kubernetes. That's because like everything was the same. They just like have to like move things around from one place to another behind the scene. They build the right abstraction across tooling, and then like you wake up in the morning, like we good to go. So you don't have to do anything. And like I was that time as a backend engineer, I didn't have to do anything. I just thought I was like, sure, my workflow is the same, everything is the same. So when you can do things like that, I think it's easier, but change usually any new idea. The one things that I learned through any new change that you have to bring, you have to resonate the value proposition before you make anything. Like if I go to someone and say, "Hey, you should move to Kubernetes," the first thing that people will tell me, "You are insane. Like you shouldn't do that." And they didn't even know because I went to the solution before the problem. But
Mhm.
then if I go through the problem first, and that's what I usually say. Don't big the tool before the problem. I love Kubernetes, but it doesn't fit everyone. Some use cases might be better with other things. So that's where like I feel like you mentioned this earlier. It's all about how you handle it, like how you really like propose the change. If you come with like, this is the change that we're gonna make, but you can come, what solution can help us solve the problem that we have? Both have the same results, but one has the hard way, one has the easy way.
No, even that I do love Kubernetes as a technology and as a ecosystem. I agree with you. Like Kubernetes is not for everyone. Like it's not the simplest tool. I wonder, like I guess given your background, you saw quite a lot of projects. Is there anything in particular, like any project running on top of Kubernetes that you think is doing a better job than the other ones?
Uh, I don't think like something specific doing one thing over the other one, but like there's a lead in each area where like you find it like, oh, that has more contributions, that more popularities, that more features, that more support. And then I feel like from a CNCF landscape, there are like some projects have done that. So one project that I have seen in the networking space is Cilium is doing like great job, like leveraging ABPF, all of the other things in the service mesh space. Istio is doing good stuff, like with the ambient coming and reducing sidecar problems, all of the kind of stuff. I actually have a talk coming at KubeCon about sidecars and ambient and things
Yeah.
like that.
No,
Yeah,
share a bit because personally, I don't like Istio. Like, I think Istio is one of the more complex projects that I saw in the CNCF. Right, like it's not your beginner. Hey, I just run Kubernetes project, so maybe share a bit. What do you like? It's I think people love to hate Istio, but in the end of the day, a lot of big companies are using it. So
yeah. Like here's the thing. I'm telling you again, it's all about the problem. Istio could be the wrong choice if you don't need it. Like if you are in a single cluster, everything is smooth, like you don't have any problem with how to route your traffic. You don't have all of these situations that you want to test for. Istio might be the complete wrong choice for you. But if you are in a multi-cluster environment, you have like services and you want to build tolerance, and then you want to have like your services in one region aware of the other. Your routing is flexible. You can be able to say like, if that happened in this case, have a routing to that service, but like when I move to a progressive delivery, like let me route canary release to version 2. And you can see like things like that works well. So what I have seen Istio good with is like MTLS stuff. That's great. Then like I used it for a bit, but it's not the biggest features that I'm looking for. I mean, the biggest features that I'm seeing in Istio, to be honest, is like how it shapes traffic in different directions, and how you can have like different ways of saying like how to handle traffic out of the box. Like circuit breakers is one of the things that Istio can provide to you out of the box. All of the failure scenarios, like you don't have the problems that comes. What's Istio solving from my perspective is usually you can do all of that on the application code. And now I like you can do circuit break, and I have seen people like implement different scenarios. But like what a product like that brings to you is that like you just configure it, you don't build it. So like I can say, if on my service, if this traffic to this place go like above like X%, just fail it over. Don't do anything. And I don't have to write the logic to do that. Istio is also helpful for like different situations where like you want to route your traffic differently in different situations, like based on headers, based on different things. You can use it for example, like you can leverage how you virtualize a service into like a way of like, I want to say like into like review environment or like dev environment, like something like that. You can say like this service talk to this service, but if this service not available, talk to the other cluster in that service. So having a mesh in a large scale cluster, it's helpful. But like if you have two services and then like you tell me that I need to install Istio, we're gonna have a problem, because it's just like I have a couple of services and you probably shouldn't have a Kubernetes cluster in the first place.
First of all, kill the Kubernetes cluster, then
Yes.
like go to Firebase or something like that, or Roku.
Yeah, go do anything. It's just like it solves a problem. Kada is a one another project that I think like helps with the scaling mechanism. I like where the project is going. I think like it's super helpful, and there are many others, but in each category there's something. And there are like the core projects that we don't talk about, like container D and other things that's already embedded into the ecosystem that no one's talked about them, but like they are doing phenomenal job. So
No, so like the Istio point is interesting, and I will ask like another question on that, because end of the day, again, like I feel people, even like big companies, do tend to hate Istio. So, when like did you like enter Istio into any company that you worked with? Like, was it you? Is it a team? I feel that always when people are using Istio, they have like two people only holding Istio hand, so it won't get crazy. So, is it true, or am I I'm like exaggerating here?
you're not exaggerating, and in some cases it's true, and I have seen it. And the problem is, it just like you, it's like, let me tell you this: Envoy on its own is complex. Imagine building the whole control plane on top of this. If you don't really grasp it really well, it might be one of these like black hole areas where like I know my traffic is going, I still know where it's going. It's just going somewhere. And then you need to have the expertise into it. So it's one of the decisions that like I really like wanted to make sure that people understand like it's a great project, but like you just need to understand it comes with its own investment. Like when you bring a value, it's not because one of the things that like we usually I try to tell anyone in the community is like open source is great, but there is an investment that you have to make when you adapt open source. It's like similar to like buy versus build. Like we have to consider open source as a buy as well. There's an investment you have to make. It's not managed by a vendor. I understand that, but like still, it's there's an yeah. Like what happened when you have a bug in Istio? What are you gonna do? Like you're either gonna fix it go ask contributors to do it. Like there's a process that and might require like more investment than you would require in a vendor in some cases, but it's good that like there's a contribution to it. Like there's people are solving the same problem, and that's what I love about open source. It's just like everyone is trying, to do their best and they contribute, and you find some people are already devoted to open source. I'm not at that level yet, but like they are only doing open source projects and they maintain projects and they have done successful and phenomenal job at it.
No, like I agree. Like the open source is what helps us to move in the speed and velocity that we're currently moving at. Uh, looking at the ecosystem, where do you think we're going? Like, what's the interesting projects that you think are going to be popular in a couple of years? Same as for like Istio or like Ada that you mentioned, which I agree, super popular.
So I believe what we're going towards is gonna be interesting. I think like Kubernetes is gonna still be in the way, but I think like we're gonna go more towards people are also like thinking of platform engineering that can abstract that. So we wanna have more options about how we scale compute without the need of like actually have to understand this whole thing. So like more abstraction is gonna come. I don't want to say serverless will come hard on this, but serverless has been there for a while, and to be honest, it helps. It helps. Like I think like the one thing that like love hate problem about like between Kubernetes and serverless is Kubernetes is like, when you have something encapsulated, so there's an boundaries and indoor and out of it, and everything is defined. My problem with serverless, and it's not a problem, it's just like you can go rogue any minute because each component is so small that you can like so having something that productionize this in a better way that make it like scoped in a way that like I can spend it fast, but I don't have to go into a trap of like being like doing everything can go wrong. I think that might be, but abstracting more different things like one problem that I'm sure you're aware of, like Kubernetes ecosystem is great, but it's also getting complicated because like you add more and more to it. Like we have the Kubernetes API, and then you have like a lot of CRDs that you're building on top of that, so it gets you into like a massive state where like
Mhm.
different things happen. I think like more abstraction towards that, like getting to a state where like it's a simple app. I just deploy a single YAML, gets me all if I need. I don't have to worry about all of this. So more and more complete manage Kubernetes solutions that like you don't have to think about anything other than just deploying your app. I think that might be a thing that we gonna see. But and also like, with all the Gen AI stuff happening around this, it also helps like make sure that the trend is going into that direction because that encapsulation and that learning curve will make it easier. So that's where I'm thinking we're gonna go, but we'll see.
Like one of the things that we're hearing quite a lot, and to be honest, like for full disclosure, I am working on that quite a lot, is AI in Kubernetes. Can we use Gen AI in order to make, I don't know, developer life easier, operation guys easier? Any thoughts on that area? Any interesting thing that you are seeing?
Um, you can use Gen AI to make a lot of things easier. I think like I'm not debating that, and I think like I just wanted to see where's the problem. One thing that I really personally have seen that Gen AI is good at is like I use things like that in a smart search, in a smart completion. Like I don't have to have like a fully like me telling like one problem usually I have just like you write a command and then like I have to remember all of the parameters and everything and like what I really want to do. Well, let's imagine like I'm trying to get my the buds in the cluster. I'm saying like get me the buds, and just like they show in front of me, or like there's something wrong going there. Like, what is that? Like, that could be, or like, build me a service that does that. Like, it doesn't really like it. It doesn't mean that I don't know how to do it. It could make me some time to do it, and like maybe like a few minutes, and then like if I ask a question and I can iterate on it. I don't know yet where that could be used in production or like how, but I see it as a good start for how you like still have a human in the loop, like kind of style. Like help me get there faster, but then like I still have to validate what's happening. The one problem that I like I would just like argue everyone to make sure that they don't get trapped into it. Let's not make that take over on like the whole thing, because like there are things that like, and I have these situations where like you could ask Gen AI something without guardrails, it could come with a great idea that never existed,
That's
and it
true.
happened. It's just
Yeah.
like, you can do that. And they're like, that never, no one implemented that. Like, I get the idea is fascinating, but like, this is where of the areas, and I don't know. But guardrails around the ecosystem, removing the small barriers and all of the kind of stuff that makes AI super helpful. And let's be honest, we've been using AI for quite a while, like with all of the Alexa, Google stuff, like for years. Like it's been there. The difference is just like it's coming with more to be generative. Don't have to really be trained. It just like takes the information. So I would use it as I have a data lake. I would just like throw it at a specific Gen AI and ask me to find the correlation, get me the right resources, things like that.
No, that is interesting. I think that, yeah, like it's one of the problems that I think it's very hard to outcode, like to write like what is interesting, while like just trying it on a Gen AI does provide like really superb result compared to coding it. So it's a great example. And what are the biggest challenges, like when you think about like the adoption of the tools that we just described and so on? And you mentioned serverless a bit. Like today, serverless didn't explode, Kubernetes did explode. And like what are like the biggest challenges that you see that awaits us in the end of the day?
Yeah, biggest challenge in any adoption is the learning curve. It's just like you getting to it's a change. You're getting to something that you don't know. Like how much effort to get you to understand the whole ecosystem. And if you diving from like very very like way of like let's talk about Kubernetes. Let's talk like where should we start? Like is it like, should we start with a pod or with a node or with a deployment or a service, or like there's like you can set for days decide. So I think adoption always comes in like there's a change. Is that one thing that like start, like I always feel that it's more appropriate to start with the learning curve, start with a problem. Like, what are we solving? And this is like problem with Gen AI, as well as like we're going for Gen AI was like, hey, how to implement Gen AI? Like, I would more rather like there are problems, questions that you ask, like, how can Gen AI help in that space? So I think if we're thinking about the problem, we still like having a bit getting the solution before the problem, but like that's not a solution. At this point, it's become like a pattern. Like we have seen that helps in other areas. Let's try to apply it in that industry and see if it's helpful. So that's more like there's a problem. What are the problems that this patterns can help us? I think that's more a helpful approach in adoption, and we'll see. But anything that like will explode in then like when you find the communities that have the same problem and they're all there's a solution that aligns that problem. So, and that's what Kubernetes happened. It's just like there's a problem, solution aligning on it. Everyone like want to contribute to it, and that's then when it starts. But always Kubernetes came from like a company who built it for a specific reason and just gave it away. So that's one reason as well.
No, I think that makes like again like total sense. Any like closing word? Like we're reaching like the end of the episode. Anything that you want to share, to say, to anything else?
Uh, Not really. Just like again and again, like big zap problem before the tool. That's would be super helpful. And technology just like try to build things in a decoupled way, where like things will make it easier. That when you have to have interchangeable pieces, that usually helps in the applications and other things. And technology is gonna always evolve. On the community side, I'm super excited that I'm gonna be in KubeCon EU London in April, and I'm gonna have a talk about sidecar and like service mesh and ambient. And with my co-speaker is Lynn Sun. She's one of the Istio maintainers, so I'm super excited about it. And also, like we just announced Kubernetes Community Day in New York, and this is going to be in June 4 this year. So looking forward to see a lot of people coming to that event. But at the end, the open source industry is and the open source ecosystem is great. Let's continue to contribute to it and let's make a difference.
Okay. Strong works to finish the episode. Pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you. Bye.
Bye.
Kubernetes